morning, students. We are on the thoracic wall, and this is a short note on the internal thoracic artery. This reads like this: write a short note on the internal thoracic artery. Okay, internal thoracic artery is also known as internal mammary artery because in females this is the major source to supply the mammary gland. Now, this we will learn under the following head: introduction, origin, course, termination, relations, okay, its anterior relation and its posterior relation, and lastly branches, and then we will learn its applied importance, okay, its clinical or applied importance or applied anatomy. Okay, how you will use your knowledge of this internal thoracic or internal mammary in your clinical practice. So let us come to the introduction first. Now this internal mammary artery, okay, it supplies the anterior part of the thoracic wall. Okay, this is the major source of the blood supply to the anterior wall, thoracic wall. Okay, now there are two mammary arteries, right mammary and the left mammary arteries. Okay, so it comes in pair on right side as well as on left side. Now this internal mammary artery or internal thoracic artery as it is called, not only it supplies the anterior part of the thoracic wall, but one of its branch goes right up to the umbilicus. This is the umbilicus. So it goes right up to the umbilicus and thus supplies the upper part of the abdominal wall also. Okay, abdominal wall also. Let us come to the origin. The origin of this artery, that is right or left internal thoracic artery, it arises from the first part of the subclavian artery. See this? This is the subclavian artery coming out deep to the this notch, okay, clavicular notch of the sternum, okay, deep to the sternoclavicular joint. Then it forms an arch and comes out from the outer border of the first rib, okay. So from here to here, till it goes to the outer border of the first rib, where it will become an axillary artery. This is the subclavian artery, and this is the first part till the medial border of scalenus anterior muscle. This is the scalenus anterior muscle, okay, and this is the first part of the subclavian artery, and this artery takes origin from the lower margin of this subclavian artery, okay, subclavian artery, okay, and this origin is just deep to that of the sternal end of the clavicle, okay, because here will be the sterno, so it is just deep to the sternal end of the clavicle. Now then, after its origin, if we see its course, okay, let us see the course, and this origin is just opposite to the origin of another important artery from the subclavian artery, that is called as the costocervical trunk. Thyrocervical trunk. Another artery from this area will take origin is the thyrocervical trunk. Okay. Now this artery then will run downward here. Okay. If we see the course of this artery, this will run downward, forwards and medially. See this as it is running downward, forwards and medially. Then it will go deep to the first costal cartilage, okay, deep to the first costal cartilage, and then this artery will then run from the first intercostal space down below up to that of the sixth intercostal space. It will run vertically downward. See this as I am drawing this artery here. This will run deep to the costal cartilages, vertically downward right up to the sixth intercostal space. This is the sixth intercostal space. Okay, this is the sixth intercostal space, and at the sixth intercostal space it will divide into two terminal branches. Okay, it will divide into two terminal branches. Okay, right. So this is the course right from the root of the neck up to the sixth intercostal space behind the first six costal cartilage, running behind the behind or posterior to the sixth costal cartilage. Throughout its course, it lies very close to the lateral margin of the sternum. This is the lateral margin of the sternum, and in its course, it is about 1 centimeter or 1.5 centimeter away from the lateral margin of that of the sternum. So this completes the course of the internal thoracic artery, right? Then let us come to the termination. At the termination, in the sixth intercostal space, it will divide in the two arteries, okay? And these are two terminal artery of the internal thoracic or internal mammary, and these are called as the two different name, that is the superior epigastric. The first is the superior epigastric. So this one is the superior epigastric, and the other one here is called as the musculophrenic. This is called as musculophrenic artery. So musculophrenic and superior epigastric artery, these are the two terminal branch which arise in the sixth intercostal space. Okay, now these two different artery, as we will see, they run downward. One will go towards the anterior abdominal wall, another will go towards the diaphragm. Okay, towards the diaphragm, right? Let us come to the relation of these arteries. Okay, relation of this artery. First we will learn the anterior relation of this artery. If you see the anterior relation of this artery, the artery lies posterior to the following structure. Okay, which are the following structure posteriorly of this artery? Let us divide it into two parts. First part, that means it lies right up to the first intercostal space because it runs downward, forwards and medially in the first up to the first intercostal space, and beyond which it will become a vertical structure. So above the first costal cartilage, it will be, after running downward, forwards and medially, it will lie posterior to the sternal end of clavicle. This will lie posterior to the sternal end because here is the sternoclavicular joint. So the medial end of the clavicle will cover the first part, I mean say the beginning of this artery, soon after its origin from subclavian. So the anterior relation is the clavicle, sternal end of the clavicle. Then it will be lying posterior to the brachiocephalic vein. Okay, it will lie posterior to the brachiocephalic vein, and then it will lie posterior to the costal cartilage, that is the first costal cartilage. Okay, so it will lie then posterior to the first costal cartilage. Now below this first costal cartilage, anteriorly it will be in relation to the upper six intercostal spaces. Okay, that means it is deep to that of the first six intercostal cartilages. So they are costal cartilages, they lie 1 to 6, they lie anterior to it. Okay, anterior to it. And then this in the spaces, okay, in the spaces between the costal cartilages, it is just lying anterior to this artery will lie the first a membrane, and that is called as external intercostal membrane. I will show you this in this diagram. Okay, I have already drawn it here. We have seen that the six costal cartilages will lie anterior, and in the space it will be, suppose if it is a space passing from that of the fifth or the sixth, fourth or the fifth intercostal spaces, then it will look like this. This is the sternum, cross section of the sternum. Our section is passing like this. So this is the sternum, cross section of the sternum. Then this green line which I have drawn is the external intercostal membrane, which was the continuation of the external intercostal muscle. Okay, so this is the external intercostal membrane. I will write down here, external intercostal membrane. Okay, and if you trace this membrane more laterally, this will be the muscle, anterior intercostal muscle. Then this artery which is here, see this artery which is lying here. Okay, this is then anterior to it will lie the muscle, and this muscle which I have drawn here is the internal intercostal muscle. This is internal intercostal muscle, right? So there will be a muscle deep to this membrane. This is because this internal intercostal muscle starts right from the lateral margin of the sternum, Then this will be crossed by the intercostal nerves. Okay, which intercostal nerve? Okay, all upper 6 intercostal nerve, first, second, third, fourth, fifth and sixth intercostal nerve, that is from first space to that of the sixth space, which is the intercostal nerve. Okay, typical intercostal nerve here will be crossing in the fifth or fourth and sixth spaces anterior to this artery, and this artery is the internal thoracic artery, okay, accompanied by the two veins. It is accompanied by the two veins on either side, and deep to this vein and artery, deep to this veins and artery, okay, posteriorly in its upper part, that is in the first and second intercostal space, there will lie the pleura, that is the parietal pleura, or here the costal pleura will lie. But from the third intercostal onward, right up to the sixth intercostal space, the posterior to this artery will lie the muscle, and this muscle is called as sternocostalis muscle. Now this muscle takes origin, this is the not subcostalis, sternocostalis muscle. Okay, so here will lie the sternocostalis muscle. Now this muscle, sternocostalis, extend from third intercostal space right up to the sixth intercostal space, and this is the muscle which takes origin from the posterior aspect of the sternum and gypide process, and it runs upward towards the costal cartilages, gets its attachment. So this forms the posterior relation to the internal mammary artery in the third, fourth, fifth and sixth intercostal. But first and second, this muscle is not extending in first and second, so the artery is directly lying onto the parietal pleura. This is the parietal pleura, or you can call it here as the costal pleura here, dotted line. So if muscle is not there, these vessels will lie, or internal thoracic artery will lie directly onto the parietal pleura. As this artery is accompanied by the veins, let me draw these veins here. I will draw these veins with the blue color here, and these veins, they accompany first to the branches, okay, of these terminal branches, and then they lie on either side of this artery, that is the internal thoracic artery, on right side as well as left side. And then this artery, they unite to form a single vein. Okay, so they will form, and this vein will ascend in the second and the first intercostal space and will go to drain into the brachiocephalic vein. So this is the vein which is just on either side of the internal thoracic artery, okay, then will form a single vein, okay, by its union, and then in passing through first and second intercostal space, it will drain into the brachiocephalic vein, right? So these are the anterior and posterior relations of the internal thoracic artery. Okay, then we come, after this, we come to the branches. Let us see the branches, okay? The branches are, number one, it is the pericardiophrenik artery. P-E-R-I, pericardiophrenik. As the name suggests, it supplies to the pericardium and to the diaphragm. Phrenic means diaphragm. So this is an artery, pericardiophrenik artery, which is soon given as it arises, and then this artery runs downward onto the pericardium, okay, onto the pericardium, and then it goes towards the diaphragm, okay. So it supplies to the pericardium. This is the first branch, pericardiophrenik artery, okay. As I said that it runs along the phrenic nerve, okay. This will go along with the phrenic nerve and supplies the pleurum, pericardium and diaphragm, okay, diaphragm. The second artery is the mediastinal artery, which are unnamed branches, multiple branches, which will go to the mediastinum and supply to the fibro-fatty tissue, thymus, okay, and part of the pericardium. So these are the mediastinal artery. They are many, not single. The third artery, which will take origin from this, is the anterior intercostal arteries. Anterior intercostal arteries. Anterior intercostal artery, and these are two in each of the space, okay. If you see the first space, there will be two anterior intercostal artery, in second two, in third two, and they run laterally. So there are in all the six intercostal space, they are given by the internal thoracic artery. Then from the seventh space, they are given by the there are also two, but they are given by the musculophrenic artery. That means from seventh intercostal, eighth and ninth intercostal space, they are the branches. Anterior intercostal arteries are branches, okay, from that of the musculophrenic. But in the first 5 to 6 spaces, they are the branches from that of the internal thoracic artery. We have already learned that they will go laterally and will just have anastomosis with the intercostal artery and its collateral branch, okay, intercostal artery and its collateral branch. Then third type of the branch, which are given by this internal thoracic artery, are perforating branches, okay, perforating branches. Now these lie near the sternum along with the anterior cutaneous nerve. Here we have seen this was the anterior cutaneous nerve just by the lateral margin of the sternum, which is the terminal end of the intercostal nerve. Now along with this nerve, these perforating branches will come out from this internal thoracic artery in the individual space, okay, just on the lateral margin of the sternum, okay. Now this perforating arteries of the second, third and the fourth space, second, third and fourth space, they are quite prominent, okay. So if I draw the perforating arteries here from the second, third and fourth, which comes out from the intercostal space along with the anterior cutaneous nerve, they are quite prominent in case of the female. Why they are prominent in case of female? Because they have to supply the blood to that of the of the female to the breast. Okay, in female they have to supply to the breast. Then after anterior intercostal artery, let us come to the next branch, and that is the terminal branches. Okay, and then it will divide into terminal branches. Right, these are the terminal branches. So note down all these branches: pericardiophanic, mediastinal, anterior intercostal, perforating branches, and now the terminal branches, which are two. That is, these two branches we have already learned: superior epigastric and musculophrenic. Now this superior epigastric runs down the seventh costal cartilage. That means deep. This is the seventh costal cartilage. Okay, this was the sixth. It runs first deep to the seventh costal cartilage. Okay, and here it enters the abdomen, that is in the rectus sheath, by passing between the sternal and costal slips of diaphragm. Here will be the costal slip and sternal slip, the gap between the two slips. Okay, this will go in the abdomen. Okay, that means in the rectus sheath, on the posterior aspect of the rectus abdominis muscle. Okay, abdominis. Thus the internal thoracic artery will not only supply the thorax, but it will also supply the anterior abdominal wall. Thus this artery, that is internal thoracic artery, is supplying right from the root of the neck up to the umbilicus. Okay, the blood supplied is from root of the neck up to the umbilicus. Okay, let us come to this musculophrenic artery. Now this musculophrenic artery runs downwards and laterally. See, it is going downwards and laterally. Okay, behind the 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th costal cartilage. Okay, 9th, 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th costal cartilages. Sometime it will go only right up to the 9th costal cartilage, that is 7th, 8th and 9th costal cartilage. Okay, and then this will perforate the diaphragm near the 9th costal cartilage. Okay, when it is not going up to the 10th, then it will perforate near the 9th costal cartilage to the diaphragm. Okay, and then it will terminate on the undersurface of the diaphragm by anastomosis with the neighboring arteries. Okay, on the undersurface of diaphragm. So this will ultimately also go into the abdomen on its undersurface. Okay, by perforating the diaphragmatic muscles. Okay, by the lower margin of the 9th or the 10th costal cartilage. Okay, 10th costal cartilage. Okay, these were the two terminal branches. So the branches are over. Let us come to the applied anatomy of the internal thoracic artery. Now, if you see the applied anatomy of the internal thoracic artery, this artery is an important artery for the coronary bypass operations. Okay, what is coronary bypass operation? Whenever there is, I mean to say, blockage in a coronary artery, usually the left coronary or the right coronary artery, this artery is of choice. Okay, because blood is flowing through this artery, but the coronary arteries are blocked. Let me draw a simple diagram so you can understand. Now, suppose this is a internal thoracic artery as going from the first part of the subclavian artery, and suppose here is the heart. Okay, if we draw the heart here, say for example a very rough diagram of the heart, and these are the coronary arteries. Okay, any coronary artery is here, and if blockage is here in the coronary arteries, okay, the blood will not pass, or little blood will pass distal to this blockage. Okay, so what happens that coronary artery is cut and it is brought and anastomose with that of this coronary artery distal to the blockage. So now the blood will pass from this artery, that is the internal thoracic artery, into the coronary artery, so that the this myocardial infarct, which in layman terms is called as heart attack, is prevented. Thus, the internal carotid artery is the artery of choice for the coronary bypass. Why it is artery of choice for the coronary bypass? Because this artery is lying very close to the heart, and you can mobilize this artery either from right or left side, and then you can easily anastomose it with that of the blocked coronary arteries, okay, and then that is the heart attack is thus prevented, okay, it is prevented, right? This completes a short note on the internal thoracic artery. Okay, so we have covered the internal thoracic artery as introduction. We have seen its origin, we have seen its course, okay, from the root of the neck to the sixth intercostal space, where it has divided into two terminal branches, superior epigastric and musculophrenic. Then we have seen its anterior relation. Then in upper two segments are intercostal space, okay, and then we have seen its posterior relation in the remaining segments, okay, and then we have seen its branches, which are multiple branches, and applied a very important artery for the coronary bypass operation. Thank you very much for watching this video.